Imagine this. When Indian Meteorological Department has predicted for this year that the monsoon would be below normal 90% of the long period average, yet in the same year, we are finding floods, be it in Assam, be it in Kerala, and various regions of the country. Now, how do you explain this paradox? That is what we'll be discussing in this today's session. The monsoon paradox, below normal rainfall, yet severe floods. Before we start with this discussion, let us have a quick overview of whatever we have discussed yesterday, or for that matter, in terms of the monsoon and its nature. See, if you see the monsoon nature, we have seen yesterday that the monsoon, which is a seasonal reversal of wind system, Monsoon season, right? This monsoon is known for having delayed onset, or there is no exact days of variations of onset of the monsoon. So the onset of the monsoon varies. Say 2026, the monsoon has started somewhat around, you see the normal dates, it is around 1st June, late May, early June, whereas this time it has started a bit late. The actual dates, it was delayed, and for that matter, by the time it has completed the progress, you can see the progress completed on 9th July 2026, entire India, whereas last year it was covered by 29th June itself. So we have discussed various mechanism, various aspects of nature of the monsoon, be it onset of the monsoon, be it in terms of the breaks of the monsoon, be it the gradual progress, gradual retreat, sudden onset. We have discussed all, right? Then we discussed various factors associated with it, be it in terms of the differential heating between land and water, be it in terms of the jet stream, the Tibetan low pressure area, the presence of intertropical convergence zone, and the broader factors of El Nino and all those things. We also have discussed yesterday why this year is a bit lesser rainfall season because of El Nino conditions and other Indian Ocean dipole conditions and all those aspects. Today, using this knowledge, we need to understand why do we have this kind of a paradox. So understand this. The Indian monsoon, the below, according to Indian Meteorological Department, we are supposed to receive 90% of the long period average across the entire country. Does that mean that we don't have floods? Yet we are facing floods. So if they ask you a question, UPSC generally asks such kind of questions. They will take the static portion, where they will take the aspects associated with whatever we have discussed with the nature, and they will try to connect with respect to the events happening around us. So this, and say you take a case study of Assam floods, they might ask you, why do we are having below monsoonal rainfall and at the same time floods as is in the same year? We have to explain that paradox. Now, when you try to understand that paradox, always try to, whenever you try to understand any subject and its concepts, you have to have some framework. First, what is the monsoon's nature which is related with this particular topic of below normal rainfall and floods at the same time? Understand that. Then when you talk about monsoon and flood, we are also talking about rainfall, some climatic elements. So you can talk about nature of the monsoon. You can talk about some climatic or geographic climatic factors associated with the rainfall. You can talk about other factors also, apart from the nature of the monsoon, climatic, some geographical factors which can contribute, or topographical factors, physical factors which can contribute to floods. So this should be the framework which we should have. Apart from that, there are some more things. For example, You can also talk about other frameworks, say, what is the role of global warming? What is the role of man-made factors, anthropogenic factors? All these things together contribute a disaster. Of course, there are some more disaster elements also. We will discuss that later on. See, first of all, in the nature of the India's monsoon, how do such things are related with this? Try to understand. We did discuss that there are active and inactive phases of monsoon. So, that active and inactive phases of the monsoon. Talk about that. What do you know about that? Necessarily, when monsoons arrive in India, say at a time of early June in Kerala, it is not necessary that from June there would be a continuous spell of rains across the 4 months of June, July, August, September. We also see that there would be natural some kind of gaps in it. So there are active and inactive phases of monsoon. Now, so naturally, the nature of the monsoon talks about active phase. And when there is an active phase, there is a chance of rainfall in a country like India where we tend to receive majority of our rains within these 3-4 months. There is no doubt about such kind of factors. Okay, active and inactive phases of monsoon. Then also we have discussed some more thing. If you club this and climatic factors, perhaps the most important factor for me is climatic factor, because the way rainfall occurs in the modern era is what will determine a flood. So in a monsoonal region, when you have the monsoonal system which is coming across, you need to understand how much amount of rainfall intensity are we getting in that active phase, right? Rainfall intensity. 100 millimeters of rain spread across 1 month and 100 millimeters of rain within a shorter duration, it does talk about that rainfall intensity with respect to the duration. It will tell you about how flooding can occur in a region. So rainfall intensity, duration is a very, very important factor. And the nature of the monsoon with respect to the rain, we always tend to have spatial and temporal variation. Spatial variations, temporal variations. What do you mean by that? Space. Not necessarily every region would receive similar amount of rain. There is a chance that some regions would receive naturally more amount of rainfall. Why? Because that is how the region is vulnerable to. A spatial, some regions will be tend to have more rainfall over others. So, India overall receives its rain from monsoons. But the amount of rainfall, say a region like Kerala, or for that matter, the Kashi Hill ranges, Mausanram and all, Chirapunji and all, when compared with Jaisalmer of Rajasthan, you don't find similar amount of rain in both the places, isn't it? So definitely the spatial and temporal variations, the spatial variations are an important aspect. Temporal variation. See, the monsoon, because of its nature, the temporal variations, when you tend to have long dry spells and intense rainfall in a short period, can lead to more amount of rain, right? So these are the factors. So monsoon in the year, naturally whenever we will find monsoons in a region, we are supposed to have monsoons known for their active inactive phases. When there are active phases, we tend to find more amount of rainfall in short durations, and that rainfall intensity, amount of rainfall which we are receiving in a region is very important. Floods are a consequence of that. And in what duration are we getting? These days we tend to receive in much more shorter period. In some places like the mountainous regions and all, because we tend to call them as cloud burst, where we receive more amount of rain in short periods. That is there. We have discussed spatial variations. Not every region would be receiving the amount of monsoon in a similar way, though the monsoon overall for the country would be having a deficit. So, if see, it is simple phenomena, averages. The average is 90% for the entire country. Naturally, when you are talking about averages, you are bound to have some kind of extremes. So, one such extreme is what we can say spatial variation. And you tend to see that these averages, they will be of such extreme that some regions would receive such huge amount of rain, and that would naturally lead to a flood. Say like Assam, if you take the Assam, it is strange paradox that it is in the month of July and all, it is overall, it has reduced only, it is having a rainfall deficit of 28% deficit, but the same time, you look at how the floods have occurred, right? So, it is about Assam itself, there is a deficit. It is strangely monsoon this year. In Meghalaya also, there was a deficit. But it is in Ladakh where we have received more amount of rainfall in terms of the averages. But averages will not determine whether that region would be flooding or not. Amount of rainfall, in what intensity, in how much time, which regions would determine how flooding occurs. So this is what you need to connect and try to write with more focus on rainfall intensity and duration. These are non-negotiable thing for this kind of a aspect. So when they ask questions like that, you have to explain such kind of things with examples, right? This is the climatic factor and the monsoonal factor. One more thing about the monsoon, yesterday we have discussed the monsoonal trough. I think we have discussed what is this, nothing but the low pressure area, say ITCZ. The presence of monsoonal trough, or for that matter ITCZ, say across, you see, in the sense that if the ITCZ is located here, then the moisture would be attracted towards it. If the ITCZ is located towards here, then the moisture would be attracted towards it. If that ITCZ stays for a longer duration, then you look at the impact. The amount of rains can be much more higher in that part of region. So that is how things happen in the modern era. Of course, there are so many correlated factors. Interdisciplinary nature is very important in our classes to be, for us to have a clarity upon. We will try to connect all these things. Then there are some kind of a geographical factors. Say orography. Mountains. You take the present Nagaland, the regions around the Brahmaputra basin, which is the prime reason for amount of rainfall to occur in this part of the world. See, when you try to understand about flood, say like Assam flood, we don't necessarily study about amount of rainfall in Assam, because Assam floods as part of the rivers, it can be product of orography and at the same time the surrounding catchment area of a river. So if you club around these concepts, say in this Assam region, you see here, Assam is surrounded by mountains. You have the Patkai Boom, the Naga Hills and all, right? You have the Patkai Boom, the Naga Hills, you have the Mishmi Hills, the Abor Hills, Dafla Hills and all. Whatever these hill ranges, as they get more amount of rainfall along the slopes, and this water as it enters via the tributaries, right? Dikhau, Zanzi and all those aspects, this Dansiri and all, they have got more amount of rainfall from Nagaland and the surrounding regions, and that has one of the prime reason why Upper Assam has been extremely flooded. Usually, the Upper Assam areas are not that flooded. But this year, because of heavy rainfall in this part of the world, they have seen significant amount of rains. So this is one of the prime factor. Okay. So orography, the mountain barriers, when the mountains receive huge amount of rainfall, and that is part and parcel of the catchment area of a river, you tend to find more floods. Assam is like a, you see, in this case, Assam, it is like a region which will, it's like a valley which is receiving huge amount of rainfall from the surrounding region. The geographical vulnerability here. So it is surrounded by mountains on all sides. The Himalayas and the eastern Himalayas, the Purvachal ranges, Patkai Boom, Naga Hills, and then the main Himalayas areas associated with the Mishmi Hills, Abor Hills, Dafla, and the water from there, the water from the Meghalaya plateau receiving water towards that, they can increase more amount of flooding in this part. So it is Assam like is a plain surrounded by mountains, geographical vulnerability. There are other factors also, Brahmaputra's nature, braided channel and all, which we have discussed in the other classes, that we will discuss further. So for this point, we will discuss later on the remaining things. So the orography and catchment area of a river are very, very important. You see, Kosi, the catchment area of the Kosi river is having the Mount Everest and all, and naturally, and the amount of elevation change from the Himalayas into the plains within a short time period, the sudden change in elevation will increase the vulnerability of a region. So one of the reasons why Assam and Bihar are naturally prone to flood is because of that, the Himalayan rivers. So that is also we can talk about that, geographical factors, the catchment area, orography and everything. So these are the natural factors which we tend to find. Sometimes if you are able to recollect from the current affairs, say in the Himalayan region, in the Himalayas, there are so many things are happening. Heavy rainfall plus western disturbances. I think we have discussed western disturbances in another class. So the western disturbances plus the monsoonal system, they all can provide good amount of rainfall within a hilly area. Remember Uttarakhand floods 2013? You have received from the Arabian branch, from the Bay of Bengal branch, and also from the western disturbances, three phases, three systems of air masses with all moisture. They have provided huge amount of rainfall along the hills of Himalayas in Uttarakhand, and that led to devastating flood. So you tend to find that also. And for that, we don't need whether it is below normal rainfall and all. It is about the local parameters. So all these factors are at play. By the way, did we discuss about global warming? No. Did we yet discuss about man-made factors? No. But these are all the natural factors which are making it highly vulnerable. So that is what you need to understand, connecting the topics which we discuss in the class. Then one more factor, global warming. Global warming. See, what is global warming? By nature, how it is related with respect to flood. See, increase in temperature. We all know the climatic basics which you have studied. Temperature is related with pressure, pressure is related with wind, wind with moisture, humidity, that would lead to rains, right? Now, when there is more amount of temperature available in a region, that would lead to more evaporation. More evaporation would lead to more amount of rains. A study was carried out recently and it has observed that for every 1 degree Celsius increase in temperature, humidity levels would increase by 7%. So, the same active phase of the monsoon and the intensities can amplify through global warming with this aspect. So within Nagaland, when a system tries to enter that with all these factors, and then as it absorbs the water, you can see that you are trying to get more amount of water here because the global warming is doing. That is the reason why we say global warming tries to intensify disasters, especially associated with atmosphere. So you have a drought, the drought would be prolonged. You have a flood, the flood would be prolonged. These are all the main factors. Okay, this is how global warming would contribute. Now, you remember this factor? This would help you to understand. In fact, there was a study which was carried out. The study says that as per the extreme events reported in the last 10 years, the extreme events, they have increased from 80 in 2016 to 181 in 2024. Look at the number of extreme events. They have more than doubled. Indicating what? It doesn't matter whether a region is, whether a certain year of the monsoon is above monsoon rainfall, below monsoon rainfall, normal rainfall, it doesn't matter. Flooding is now characteristic feature of monsoon. Right? Flooding is a characteristic feature of the monsoon since ages. And that characteristic feature is now amplified further. This is how the things are. Not just that, moving further, as we discuss, the man-made factors. Now you see, how are we managing the region? The amount of rainfall remains the same. The variability remains the same. How are we managing? For example, with respect to urbanization and all, if you have turned your regions into concrete jungles, especially the cities, and lack of stormwater drainage, do you really think that we would be able to absorb water? And that too, our infrastructure, we are talking about the old infrastructure. Sometimes we don't even have that basic infrastructure in some regions. Look at our Gurgaon, look at Mumbai. Now, nowadays we are observing that almost all the new cities which are being developed, new parts of the cities which are being developed, they're having that phase. I still remember Hyderabad in 1908, there was a devastating flood in Hyderabad. Okay, I still remember in the sense I'm not that too old. It is from the data, right? After that, the then government there, Nizam government and all, they have asked Vishwesvaraya to create a plan for catchment areas of the Hyderabad region, and they have developed some lakes. And after that, the amount of flood has significantly reduced. So the planning of the city is based on that. These days, when we develop some cities under the name of real estate and all, the encroachment of the floodplains, lakes, nalas, and everything has led to a complex factor there at the cities. Anyhow, overall, we can say concretization, cities, urbanization, lack of infiltration is the prime reason why we are finding floods. Okay, we are not talking about a special topic called urban floods, so we can say lack of infiltration. Urbanization is the basic thing. And another thing, the floodplain encroachment. If you see the Assam floods, the regions of the tributaries, how they have changed in the last 10 years is one of the prime factor why do this flooding has occurred. There were talks also about the mining, deforestation and all these aspects in this part of the world. And you all know, if there is more deforestation, naturally what happens? There is more runoff. When there is more runoff, there is more sedimentation, right? More sediments at the rivers. So rivers will occupy with the more sediments, and naturally you see that the outcome would be much more disastrous. So this is also there. So deforestation, more runoff, more sediments, less capacity for the river to absorb. And naturally, by the vulnerability of geography, the Brahmaputra is known for sediments. If you identify the top 5 rivers of the world in terms of high sediments, Brahmaputra would always be there among the top 5. So that is also a factor. Deforestation, the encroachment, floodplain encroachment. Say in the cities, you can talk about the lake encroachment and all, which will contribute to the flooding. So these are the things. Also, there is another factor which is also a major factor. For example, we did discuss in the Kosi flood why existing solutions are not working. The embankments. Embankments are not one-stop solution for everything. Sometimes in the Kosi region, embankments has become the source for flooding. We have discussed that. So embankments, constructing the nalas and all so that they are blocking the water, but they absorb the siltation and they further contribute, they further contribute to the floods. So we have discussed that elaborately in that, but these are the aspects which you should be trying to understand with respect to the floods, right? So we can talk about so many things. We can talk about the soil capacity also. We can keep on adding so many things. El Nino, Indian Ocean dipole, we can add so many factors, but the main factors are the rainfall thing coupled with the nature of the monsoon, the physical factors, orography, catchment area, and all, and then this global warming and the floodplain encroachment. So, UPSCs try to see this whether you are able to see the diverse factors at play layer by layer, how are they causing a major challenge is what UPSC tends to observe. And if you are able to dissect them and able to write answers with examples, with diagrams like this, naturally you tend to see that you would be doing well. And one more thing, you please understand there should be always a differential factor while you try to write your answers. What should be the differential factor? Is it everyone is expected to know about concepts. So conceptual clarity, there is no discussion, right? But after with conceptual clarity, how are you providing wonderful examples? How are you substantiating it? How are you drawing some diagrams, focusing on maps, presentations? And my favorite is the conclusions, which are solution oriented. Basically, you are an administrator. So, how are you focusing on the solutions? For me, that becomes very, very important. For example, in this scenario of the paradox of monsoon, below normal rainfall and floods, I would say that the policy planners should now focus not just on overall data, they should focus on regional data. In fact, as we discuss, there is a discussion happening with respect to flood forecasting in the parliament about the Assam floods. So the flood forecasting is an important aspect. Regional data. Overall we are getting, but are we getting the regional data? So there are many districts which are having deficit as of now. So what is at the regional level? How are you forecasting that data itself with respect to regional data, flood forecasting with respect to the soil level, soil moisture levels, with respect to the hydrology of groundwaters and the rivers and all? We need to use all this data. The way we collect this data and use also has to change, because ultimately this is what is happening. On one side, we are having the variation with respect to how are we using the data with respect to implementation at the ground level, be it in terms of irrigation, be it in terms of groundwater recharge, be it in terms of water supply. That's a different scenario. That is also one call for improvement. Another call for improvement is how are we need to get that regional data, flood forecasting, and how are you interlinking all these things rather than simply saying the long period average. So there is a need for district level, state level. You look at all the floods in the last 5-10 years. One of the solution which governments are intensely focusing these days are, because we have a success of managing cyclones. One of the success story of managing cyclones is forecasting, early warning systems. So how we can intensify our Doppler radars, our early warning systems and all in this from the point of view of floods can help in terms of managing. So that is one dimension. So definitely there is a focus on that. There is the focus on this. You have to pick such kind of differential factors. See, I believe in one thing. After your prelims exam, you wanted to show your true personality to the true personality. Interview is there. Definitely interview is there. But more than the interview, in your answers, in your examples, in your solutions, in your practicality, the way you can talk with the examiner, evaluator through your answers, through solutions, I think that should be your differential factor for me, right? So after a point, you have to understand that, and it is very easy for you across the subjects and all, showcasing your skills and showcasing your personality in a mains answer exam, in a mains would be much easier over interview. Yes, interview is there. There is also a level of discretion there and all. We'll not discuss about that now. But definitely what is there in your hands, using your differential factor, your personality, showcasing that in your answers is very important for me. So whenever they ask such kind of questions, especially the problems which we are finding, either you have to talk about the government steps in the right direction, identifying the loopholes and suggesting a way forward. That should be your niche. If you develop that niche and try to write answers, who knows, you would be doing really well. So that is about this topic. We'll discuss about the further aspects in the other class. Thank you for watching. Take care.